All right, one of the big questions a lot of people are asking is how do I prepare my artwork and what design program should I be using? So we're going to talk about that real quick. All right, so if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that my go-to is Inkscape and Photoshop for design editing and design creation. Inkscape is a vector design program to create SVG files is what most people use it for. You can export those as PNG files directly out of Inkscape too, but typically I do that work over in Photoshop because I might be doing some other things, or I'm building basically my gang sheet in Photoshop. For those of you who don't know what a gang sheet is, it's just a sheet the printer prints up to about 22 inches wide, and so if you buy a 22 inch by 60 inch gang sheet, which is 5 feet long, you can put as many graphics and mix and match and use up as much space as you can on that sheet, and then they can be cut apart to be applied. So again, I use Inkscape and Photoshop a lot. I do have a mobile app that I'll show you in a moment called Remini that I use to enhance photographs. It does an amazing job at enhancing, like a grainy or fuzzy photograph, especially like old pictures. And then a lot of people like to use Cricut Design Space still because that's the only real design program they're familiar with. They're used to using that to design for their Cricut and cutting or doing print and cut with their designs. And one thing I want to mention real quick there is do not use screenshots out of Design Space. You want to use a print and cut and make it a PDF file. There's another video on my channel that shows exactly what you need to do in order to do that. And that's super important. The screenshots will not work for you. You will not be happy with that. So there's a lot of different programs that you can use in place of those to accomplish the same things. CorelDRAW is one option. It's more on the vector design program side, just like Inkscape and Adobe Illustrator or something. And Corel also has Paint Shop Pro, which is a great, it's a fantastic raster image editing program similar to Photoshop. It's actually what I used about 25 years ago before I learned Photoshop, and that was where I learned all the principles of working with layers and image resolutions and all that. It was before it was even a Corel product. There are a lot of people out there using Affinity Designer. I'm not too familiar with it. I don't use it. I have the trial installed to poke around and see what it does, but a lot of people are using Affinity Designer. One of the ones that's kind of I'll say controversial topic among DTF print shops is Canva, because Canva is real easy for most people to just log in, bring it up, and design their image and everything. What most people run into a problem with is, or most printers run into a problem with, is the person doing the designing doesn't understand file size and resolution requirements and everything, and then the artwork ends up very poor quality. And there are ways to get around that, and we'll show you a couple tips here in a moment. There's a couple web-based programs out there that are pretty good. Photopea is one. You can do quite a bit with Photopea, and one of my go-tos has always been Pixlr. Pixlr you can do it on tablets and phones. I'm not sure what the limitations are there, though. I don't use it that way, but Pixlr.com, Pixlr.com, and you can subscribe to it. It's pretty low cost. I think you get like 3 downloads a day if you edit and create images. You can download those 3 times a day, I think, something like that, for free. And it's one that if I'm somewhere and I'm working on a computer that doesn't have Photoshop, maybe I'm at a friend's house or something and I need to edit something for them real quick, I can go to Pixlr.com, open that image, do my editing. It's very similar to Photoshop in functionality and layout, so it's a familiar environment. But it's a real handy one. My problem with those web-based editing programs are that a lot of them make it real easy to lose your artwork. You can accidentally close your browser too easy, or if you've got too many tabs open, your browser crashes or something, you can lose your artwork, and it can be frustrating. So those are the nuances you give up sometimes with some of those programs. 2 excellent free imaging editing programs out there. GIMP, the new image manipulation program, has been around for a long time. Very easy to use and very powerful for a free program. One of my favorites is paint.net. Now, don't go to paint.net to try to download it. It is getpaint.net. And when you do go there to download it, be very careful what you click on. There are advertisements, and there are advertisements that it'll look like a big download button, but it's really a paid ad. And I don't think there's anything really bad, but it can trick you into installing like a coupon thing on your toolbar for your browser and stuff like that. So make sure you go to the downloads page, go down, you'll see there's a link there to download it from the Microsoft Store or to download the install file, which is what I usually recommend doing. It's just easier, in my opinion, to keep that stuff separate from the Microsoft Store. But if you're already set up that way, you can do it either way. And paint.net is a pretty good, nice, powerful program that can do all the basics for you, to get you by as well. But for Photoshop, it's like $22.99 a month or something like that to have it. If you do any volume at all, it's well worth the investment to have that and to use it. Otherwise, you might want to look into something like Paint Shop Pro, that has more of a one-time fee or something like that, that makes it a little bit easier and cost-effective if you're doing lower volume work. Now, one of the things I want to mention is, regardless of which program you use, requirements remain the same, fundamentals remain the same. So when we're talking about dots per inch and image resolution and image sizes, and the images should have hard edges and not transparent edges, and soft feathered edges and no transparent areas, things like that, all of those things apply regardless of what art editing program you're using. So you have to maintain those same things regardless of what you're using. So let me flip over to the computer real quick. I'm going to show you a few things. I'll show you a few things in Inkscape and Photoshop. I'll show you Remini, and I'll show you what you want to look for with your images, and give you a couple tips with Photopea and Canva and all these things, and what you're going to want to do. Like I said, I won't show the same thing to you in all the platforms I just talked about, but I will show you a couple of them because, like I said, the principles remain the same. So if you need to do something like check your image resolution, you're going to have to find that in the program you're using, but you'll know when you find it if you know what you're looking for. And that's one of the things that I like to teach, is why you do things, not necessarily the steps of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and how do I get from step 1 to 5, but why you do certain things. It's in my opinion, it's far more important to understand why than how, because if you understand why, you can figure out how. If you understand how, but you don't know what you're doing, you don't know why you're doing it, then that can lead to some problems. So let me switch over to the computer, and we'll show you a few things here. Okay, so we'll start with looking at a couple things in Inkscape that I want to point out. Inkscape, I have a full course on Inkscape over on my website at TroyTube.net. That is entirely free. You can go through the course by just watching the videos and follow along, or you can go through the same videos that are followed up with questions and answers, which can help a lot of people with retaining these things. So if you watch those videos, follow along, do the Q&A, you're probably a lot more likely to retain the information and learning than if you just watch the videos. And so one of the couple of things I want to point out here is I already have this image on the screen. I'm not going to go into in this video how to create SVGs and all the requirements and everything. That's what the course is for. But there's a couple of things here that you want to be aware of when you have your design completed and before you export to a PNG file. One of those is to make sure the border box is no larger than the image itself. And so we can do this a couple of different ways. We can go to File, Document Properties, click on this button that says Resize to Content. And I'll move this to the side, and you'll see when I click that, it will shrink that down to the minimum size that it can be around that file. Now I'm going to undo that, and I'm also going to show you the shortcut for this. So under the Edit menu, you'll see Resize Page to Selection, and the shortcut is Shift Control R. So if I hold Shift and Control and press the R key, it will accomplish the same thing. Now this is assuming that our image is ready to be uploaded into a gang sheet or worked with, and it is sized properly. So we can do a couple things here. If we save it as an SVG file, then we can bring it into our online gang sheet builder, or you can bring it into Photoshop or another program to work with it. In this case, we're going to export it directly to a PNG file. So we're going to go over here to File and Export, and the Export tab will open up, and we have some options here. So document is going to be your actual file you're working with. In most cases, we want to export the page, which is that document border we just shrunk down around the image. And we can choose to make it whatever size we want. If we want to alter the size, in this case, it's currently 3031 pixels wide by 300 dpi. This DPI setting is crucial. And then you have your setting down here where you're going to export that to. And you have your choice of file type. So we'll set that for PNG and simply hit export. And I didn't change the default path, so it saved it under my profile path. So here's the bitmap.png file as it was named. And if I open that, you'll see it opens in the photo viewer, and you can see the letters with no background around it. So this could be uploaded directly into our gang sheet builder or brought into Photoshop for further work. But if you're going to bring it into Photoshop for further work, I'd suggest doing that with an SVG file type. So what we'll do here is we will also save this on my desktop as a PNG file, or excuse me, an SVG file, and we'll just give it a name there, and we'll set it as a plain SVG. Again, all of these things and the reasons we do this is in that course, so you want to take that course if you haven't taken that. So then we have an SVG file of TroyTube, just the letters, and we also have that PNG file. And I'm going to show you in Photoshop the importance of what it means and why you would want to use one over the other. So now I have both files here, and one is the PNG file, one is the SVG file, and you can see the file extension. Now with Windows by default, you are unable to see file extensions, so you have to turn that on to be able to see what the file types are. There's a couple different ways you can do this depending on your version of Windows. If you're on Windows 11, when you're in a folder, you can go to the View menu, Show, and select the file name extensions. If you're on Windows 10 or another version, I think it can vary at where it's at, but there's typically this button here, the three dots, and options, or sometimes there's a view menu and options. And when you go to that options, you have to go to the View tab and uncheck the box that says Hide Extensions for Known File Types, and that will show your file extension names. Now what I'm going to do first is drag and drop this SVG file into Photoshop. And it's going to give me a pop-up that is going to ask me what size and resolution and everything do I want this image. And if you'll remember over in Inkscape, it was 3031 pixels wide. And if I multiply that by 300 dpi, it becomes 10.104 inches. So it offers to bring it in its exact size first. I can make this a different size if I wanted. Let's say I want to make it a 4-inch chest logo, and if I convert this to pixels, it should say 1200, and there it is. 300 divided into 1200 is 4 inches. And we can leave this on RGB. We want 300 dots per inch. Anti-alias is, you always want to uncheck anti-alias with DTF prints, most of the time. If you're talking about the edges and things, I keep it turned off on pretty much everything. Constrained proportions, of course, is your aspect ratio, but anti-alias, you want to turn that off in almost all cases when you're working with DTF designs. And when I bring that in, you'll see that it is very crisp. And if I zoom all the way down to the pixel level, you will see hard edges. There is no faded edges along the side of this. Okay. Now I'll go back and do that again. And this time I'm going to check anti-alias. And if I zoom all the way down to the pixel level, you'll see that there are transparent pixels along the edges. Now with this image, it's only 1 or 2 pixels usually that are partially transparent, so that's not a big deal. It will usually be fine. It'll print absolutely fine. But when you zoom into this level, if there's like 8 or 10, 15 pixels of transparency that feathers out into the abyss, so to speak, that's probably not going to print very well around the edges with DTF. Now I'm going to bring the PNG file in, and you'll notice it did not ask me anything. It just brings it right into Photoshop and doesn't do anything. And if I zoom in, I will see a little bit of feathering there around the edges. Now, the mistake a lot of people make is resizing a PNG file once they're in Photoshop. So let's say if I make my canvas larger using the crop tool here, we'll make it very large. And then I want to adjust the size of this file. I'm going to go to transform and scale. I'll make this really big just so we can see what happens here. When I zoom in real close now, you'll see a lot more transparency. So what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe about 8 or 10 pixels of transparency. And what's going to happen is when we do that inset for the white print on the back of the DTF transfer, you're going to see, some people call it a glow or a halo, where some of it's going to peek out around the edges. So if you put it on a dark garment, it's going to have like a little white outline around it, unless we choke that white in a lot more than what we have for hard edges. So if I zoom in real close, you'll start to see that again. So we'll go back to our SVG file. We'll uncheck the anti-aliased. And depending on what you're doing, it can have an effect on how you want to prepare your files. What I tell most people is they want to have a little bit of space around all 4 edges between the image and the edge of the graphic, just a little bit, not a lot, to allow space for between the files, and so that we don't have any overlap, and the white ink prints all the way to the edge of the image, and all those things that can happen. So if I go to my crop tool and I just pull this out a little bit so that there's just a little bit of space all the way around, that is preferable. And then you can manipulate and work with this however you want with Photoshop to prepare it for printing with DTF and exporting it as a PNG file. When you export your PNG file, you want to go to File, Export, Export As. Do not use Quick Export. Do not use Save for Web. Use Export As and set it for PNG file with transparency. It will show you your dimensions, and then you can export that file as your PNG file ready to be printed. Now the same thing goes with these PNG files. When you bring them into our gang sheet builder on our website, you want to bring them in the size that they're going to be, because if you stretch them and start adjusting them, it can cause the edges to get soft, just like it did in Photoshop here. When you bring in SVG files into our gang sheet builder, which you can bring them straight in, you don't have to do anything in Photoshop, but when you bring them into the gang sheet builder, you can bring those in, adjust them however you want, save them, and then when you place your order, it's going to convert that to a PNG file for us that's suitable for printing. All right, for those of you who use Canva and you want to keep using Canva for your designs, you can do that, but you need to make sure you're making them high enough resolution and large enough files to be able to work with effectively. What I usually recommend is when you create your design, you choose that it's a poster layout. Makes it a very large file, 18 by 24 inches, and make your design as large as you can within this layout. I'll drop a picture in here. See if we drop a graphic in here and make it as large as you can on this format. And when you export your file and you download it, when you click share, you're going to go to download. You're going to put it on PNG file. You don't want to do SVG file here because this would be just a bitmap graphic inside of an SVG file. It's not really scalable. So we want a PNG file, and then we want to move this slider all the way to the far right, make it as large as we can, and select transparent background. And then we can download that. Now I'm going to go back to Photoshop just because it's easier for me to show you some of these things. And if I open that file in Photoshop, you'll see it as a PNG with a transparent background with the graphic only that I dropped in there. And so I could crop this down a little bit if I wanted. If that was a design that I was ready to upload and order, then I can do this and save that as a PNG file and just drop it right into Photoshop into a pre-designed gang sheet layout that you can download from a site, or you can upload that into our gang sheet builder to place your order. Now, one other thing I want to point out is the size of the image. If you remember in Canva, we made this a very large image, and the reason is that we're going to shrink it down to whatever size we need. And when you have a image that's larger than you need, when you shrink it, it condenses the dots per inch and makes the image a better quality image to the eye. So if I'm in Photoshop and I want to transform the size of this, and I go to scale, when I hold the shift key, it will maintain its aspect ratio, and you can see in the corner there it's showing me the size I want that image. So if I want to put it on the front of a shirt, I might make it 10 inches wide or so, and then I would then crop my canvas down to the size it needs to be, and then upload this to the gang sheet builder or use it in my Photoshop gang sheet builder template. And a couple of the web-based editors that I recommend are Photopea as well as Pixlr. So we'll take a quick look at Photopea. It can open your Photoshop files, so if you download those Photoshop templates to build your own gang sheets when you purchase, you can use Photopea, and Pixlr will also do that too. The other alternative is just to create your own, and so if you go to New Project, you can choose your sizes. So 6600 pixels would be 22 inches wide, or you can change this 2 inches and put it at 22. If you want a 5-foot gang sheet, would be 22 by 60, and then we want 300 DPI, and you'll notice that changed. So once you put that in, you want to make sure these are the size that you want, and then you want to set it for a transparent background. You do not want a white background because that will print a solid white image around all your transfers. Nobody wants that. So when you create that gives you a 22-inch wide by 60-inch long gang sheet layout, and then after you lay out all your transfers and designs on here, you would go to File and export as a PNG file, and then use that to upload to our site to make your purchase for your order. Essentially the same thing in Pixlr. However, you want to use the Pixlr editor is the correct choice here, and it's pretty much the same thing. When you create a new image, you can choose what size you want to make that image, and turn off the background, create, and then you have a layer to begin working with from there as well. And I mentioned Corel Paint Shop Pro earlier, so if I'm in Paint Shop Pro and I want to open an image, if I open the SVG, it will do the same thing and ask me the size and whether or not I want to maintain the aspect ratio. And then I can start doing my editing and adjustments within Paint Shop Pro. This is a different type of interface than Photoshop or any of the others. I'm not too fond of this layout versus other programs because all the other programs have a very similar layout. They've really modified this one since I used it years ago, where it's not as intuitive in my opinion. But if you learn how to use it and you can use it properly and it works for you, then that's what I suggest. You use the one that works for you. I also mentioned GIMP, the new image manipulation program, and you can download that from gimp.org. So inkscape.org for Inkscape, gimp.org for GIMP. GIMP is kind of if you will, the photo editing alternative to Inkscape. Inkscape is more for scalable vector graphics. The GIMP is more for raster images like Photoshop. So you can download this. The interface is pretty good. It has a lot of options, things that you can do, all your basics as far as editing program goes. That you're working with layers and all the same basics apply. So GIMP is a good alternative if you want to learn it. Now, one of my favorites of all time, the free editing programs, is Paint.net. They've done a wonderful job on it. The layout is a lot like Photoshop in a lot of ways, and it lets you do all the basic editing, and it is free, of course. So the way to get that is to go to getpaint.net. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you want to be careful when you download it because there are a lot of ads. And you see all these download buttons, these are actually paid ads. And so if you click on one of those, you could be accidentally downloading a toolbar for your browser or something. And I don't think there's anything particularly bad here, but those paid ads are a little bit tricky. So pay attention to what you're doing. You want to go to the download link. And again, more download buttons, so be careful about clicking those. If you scroll down, you'll see the actual download links. You can download it from the Microsoft Store, or you can go to the link here and download the install for free. Now, if you go to the Microsoft Store to download it, it is $9.99. I'm not sure why they charge for it there, other than maybe it's the resources to manage this or something. They want to try to make some money from that, or maybe they can't make money from ads like they do on the website and in the actual program. But, if you just download the installable version, it will work fine. And a quick look at it, you see the toolbar. It's kind of antiquated as far as the theme goes. It looks like the old version of Windows to a degree, but all the same basic editing tools are here. So you have your layers, you can turn your background off, have the transparency. Now, Paint.net will not open an SVG file, so but if you want to work with your PNG files and other graphics and export and save your PNG file, it will work well for that. So for basic editing, for a free Windows program, Paint.net is really hard to beat as far as the quality and what you can do with it. All right, as you can see, there are a lot of different options for designing. Again, Inkscape and Photoshop are my go-tos. I forgot to show you Remini. So we'll take a quick look at Remini here with the app, the mobile app that we use to enhance photographs. And so again, Remini is a subscription. So I have it on my mobile device, and I use this to enhance photographs. It doesn't tend to work great for hard graphics, like I said, like logos and things that have solid colors. It doesn't enhance those necessarily. It can sometimes, depending on the image, but most of the time I use this to enhance photographs. So here's an example. You're going to get a kick out of this. This is me and my mom and my brothers, and this is me back here when I was, I guess I'm maybe 10 or 11 years old here. And so I'll zoom in on my face, and we have a before and after where we can see the enhancement. And look at how much sharper the images are when you do that. It does an amazing job at that, and enhancing and sharpening photos. So if you have a photo that you want to use in a design, you can use Remini to enhance it and then download it and then bring it into Photoshop or something and edit that photo. So again, a lot of different options. All the same principles apply regardless of which one you're using. So I encourage you to use the one that works for you. I fully support Inkscape and Photoshop and everything. The others, I'm a little iffy on because I haven't taken time to learn them inside and out like I have some of the other programs. I don't even know Inkscape and Photoshop inside and out. They can do way more than what I use them for. But all the same principles apply, and you want to be careful and make sure you're prepping your artwork correctly for printing for DTF. We'll go into some other videos here following this one where we actually do some things and create some designs and create images and designs for DTF transfers. So if you have any questions or comments, post them down below the video.